April, I wanted to go back to a point you made earlier where you said a lot of us feel like we're really far behind, and we're really not. But it does, the cycle of change is very quickly here, and it does feel like if I'm not deploying serverless apps on dynamic infrastructure using CI/CD pipeline and Rust, I'm not really DevOpsing. Is there? I mean, you're arguing that's not true. So why isn't that true? Because man, it really does feel that way.
It does feel that way, and we get information overload. So, I use Twitter a lot, and I use Twitter because I can see a snippet of what's been released, and we're releasing new features. So if you're kind of keeping up on, TechCrunch or any of the news articles, you see a lot come out, and you see people talk about new things. You go to any kind of online event or user group, you see new things, and like, oh, this is great. The new features are there, but it isn't right for everyone, and that's the thing. It's like containerization. Every customer's like, oh, I want to containerize this. I'm like, do you need to containerize it? Like, we could make this a microservices. I mean, when you go to architect a system, it's good to look at what is really there and what it needs to do and what you're trying to achieve out of that. And yeah, it's hard because we see all these new things, but yes, the technology is there, but we don't always need that specific technology. We may want it, but it's not a need. It's kind of like, when you're a child and you're like, I want candy, and your parents are like, you don't need candy. You're like, yes, I do. They're like, no, you want candy. It's kind of like that with customers. Sometimes we have to go back and say, do we need this? But yeah, there's a phenomenal rate of change. And there's so much we can do. I mean, it isn't just standing up a server anymore and going, yeah, there's our box, there we go. Everything is a lot more dynamic. And I think that's important. So if we can kind of future-proof what we are deploying to be more dynamic, that will help us in the long run. So for instance, if I have my infrastructure as code, I can change, i.e. that code pretty easily. I can tear down my infrastructure, rebuild it, deploy it somewhere else. It changes how we talk about DR and backup. It changes how we talk about the different services we're utilizing. So it is fast and it is ever moving. But if we kind of start not upgrading, but really modernizing some of our infrastructure, we have that capability to kind of change and do things. But yeah, there's absolutely a lot of great things coming to the cloud, which is fantastic, but it is so overwhelming.
So I want to drill into do we actually need the thing? How do you make that determination? A lot of it's driven by developers, I think, and release cycles. Is there something there? Are there other guidelines you can give people to help them determine whether they need the thing, whatever it is?
So I think when you start a project or you have this idea and you want to do something, I mean, it's great. You can build out a sandbox and test it in Azure and then just destroy it, right? For pretty much minimal cost. I think this is the great thing about the cloud. I can build something, test and go, nope, this doesn't work. Take it down, a few hours later. And that's something we didn't have when we were strictly on premises, on-prem before, or in data centers, especially a hosted data center. We had to wait to spin up a server. So this ability to change is nice. But when you look at what someone wants, why do we want to do it? Why do we need to go to that technology? And it is going to be very much an architectural decision. What are the pros and cons? And it's very simply listing out the pros and the cons. Like, what feature benefits do we get? When you look at PaaS or software as a service in Azure, I've sat in front of customers like, oh, we built this custom app. We want to get in the cloud. It runs on this many VMs. We need resiliency. I'm like, hold on a second. What does this app do? Oh, it's a mapping program. Oh, we have Azure Maps, and it ticked all their boxes. So it's literally what do we need? What are our wants? And if we have a product that does it, we're like, here you go. Like, it may not be perfect out of the box, but it gets them a lot further than where they are today. Just to change something for the sake of change, what are we getting out of it? Pain, tears, sweat, blood, So realistically, like, what benefits are we getting out of that product?
You're saying don't chase the hype cycle, chase whether or not you actually need a thing. Like any other technology evaluation any of us have done for years and years and years.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have customers that move to the cloud and virtual machines, and that's great. They're not very nimble. And there's a use case for virtual machines, but I always look at customers and go, right, can we put this into a platform as a service? Can we go microservices or serverless when and where it's possible? But I don't want to lead with microservices because it's the hot new thing. And yes, it's great. It's awesome, but it's not always the right thing.
Yeah. And the nice thing about the cloud that you mentioned is if you do want to play with the new shiny and you don't have a good business use case for it yet, you can experiment for like low or almost no cost with a lot of these things, see if it does meet some unknowable need, because there's the unknown unknowns that you have to explore, and you're not moving your production app to that thing and realizing, oh, this doesn't fit at all.
and it's low entry point, right? So
Hmm.
I see a lot of ops teams or developers start to have a play with the technology and go, yeah, I built this. And I've had some really intelligent people that I've worked with. We're like, we either do like a hackathon at Microsoft or some kind of learning thing. They're like, we have a great use case for this in our organization. I've gone and built it. And like, they'll go show the exec team. The exec team's like, wow. And then there's always discussion around cost and functionality and features and all that good stuff. But I've seen some people that get the light bulb moment. And when you get that light bulb moment, build something really cool. I mean, we talk about all the different stuff out, there's GitHub Actions, there's CI/CD pipelines with all sorts of different technologies. Go have a play with it. And you kind of have this light bulb moment, go, actually, I know how I can use this. And even something small, that entry point is really low compared to where it used to be, where you have to go buy hardware, have a sandbox environment, and then you get yelled at because you need that sandbox environment for production, because you're out of space. So
When you say, I know how I can use this, that's the magic for me always right there. As soon as I have a use case for this, then it's like, okay, I'm off to the races. Let's figure this out.
yeah, let's make it happen. And I see so many developers and operations people that are in the organization that can then go to the exec team or someone in the business and get buy-in for their idea. And that's phenomenal. And that's making change from the bottom up instead of the top down. And I love seeing that. I absolutely love seeing that developer operational enablement in the cloud, where someone says, I have this idea, I've built something. We have customers come to Hacks and they go show the SLT, the senior leadership team, what they've done. And they're making the change in the organization. And I love seeing it when people get that light bulb moment and they just you just see them, they're like a jet plane. They just take off and they're like, I figured it out. Look at this. It does this, and this. And they're like, and I love that excitement, and you could be the quietest person in the room sometimes. And they're like, they just have this, they built something amazing. How can I support you? And it's awesome. It's awesome to watch.
Yeah, yeah. I've had this experience so many times where I read the marketing materials and I think I kind of understand the product. And then I read the docs and I'm like, I'm a little bit closer, but I don't ever really understand a product until I get hands-on. I start tinkering around with it. I'm like, oh, that works completely different than I had in my mind. And sometimes that's a bonus. Like, yes, okay, I see this use case that I didn't see before. And sometimes it's like, oh, this is not going to fit what I was looking for at all. But it's never really clear for me, at least, until I get that hands-on sort of experience with it.